Deep in the history of Jewish mythology lies a narrative figure who defies the conventions of his time and embraces his own independence. Her name is Lilith, the first wife of Adam. Considered a demon in antiquity and a feminist icon in modern times, Lilith has undergone countless interpretations and adaptations, making her one of the most enigmatic and intriguing figures in the narratives of human history. But who is she and how did she gain her fame? In Jewish folklore, Lilith is believed to be Adam's first wife before Eve. Though the Torah, a compilation of the first 5 books of the Hebrew Bible, does not mention her, over time she was associated with Adam as a way of reconciling the differences in the creation story narratives found in the books of the Bible. After she separated from Adam, Lilith was presented as a demon or spirit that haunted children and women during pregnancy. She is also associated with the desire for independence, freedom, and fighting against male domination and power. Let me just add that because the theme is actually very important, and that is that we all know that everything is polar. Everything is polarity. We live in unity, and the cosmic principle says that everything should be equal. It turns out that the biblical story is not exactly like that, and not just there. Was Lilith really such a dark and scary demon, or is there something more to her story that remains hidden to us all? What is the origin of the Lilith myth, and how has it evolved over time? Lilith's true origins has become inaccurate among scholars, though some have suggested that her image may have been influenced by Sumerian legends of female vampires and derived from ancient Mesopotamian and Babylonian cultures, where it was believed that she was a demon or spirit associated with storms and wind. In Sumerian mythology, she was called Lilitu, a type of creature that haunted babies and pregnant women. In this tradition, Lilith is described as a winged creature female form and is associated with the concept of impurity. However, the most famous version of the story of Lilith can be found in Jewish tradition. While Lilith is mentioned 4 times in the Babylonian Talmud, only in the alphabet of Ben Sira, which is a medieval text from the 9th or 10th century, she is associated with the original version of the creation story. The alphabet of Ben Sira describes Lilith as Adam's first wife and tells her story in detail. According to this story, Lilith was created by a god from the dust of the ground, in the same way that Adam was created, and she was supposed to live in the Garden of Eden with him. But what went wrong? Lilith believed that they were both to be treated exactly the same. She argued that they should be equal, and she opposed Adam when she disagreed with him. Here is part of the text. Lilith replied, "We are equal to each other, because as we are both created from the earth, but they did not listen to each other." When Lilith saw this, she spoke the name of the god and flew into the air. So according to the story, after leaving Adam, Lilith fled to the Red Sea, where she encountered demons and bore hundreds of their children. Adam stood in prayer before his creator. "The woman who gave me escape, immediately God sent 3 angels to bring her back. If she agreed to return, well, if not, she must allow 100 of her children to die every day." The angels left the god and pursued Lilith, whom they overtook in the midst of the sea and the mighty waters into which the Egyptians were destined to indulge. They told her the word of God, but she would not return. "Leave me," she said. "I was created only to cause sickness to babies, and if the baby is male, I have dominion over it 8 days after its birth, and if it is female, 20 days. When the angels heard Lilith's words, they insisted that she return. But she swore to them in the name of the living and eternal God, "When I see you or your names or your forms in an amulet, I will have no power over this baby." She also agreed to have 100 of her children die every day. Accordingly, every day 100 demons die. And for the same reason, Jews write the names of angels on the amulets of their little children. When Lilith sees their names, she remembers her oath and the child is protected. Left alone and unable to accept Lilith's refusal, Adam asked God to create another mate for him, which led to the creation of Eve from Adam's rib, or our familiar creation story. According to some versions, Lilith was jealous of Adam and Eve because they lived in Garden of Eden. Planning to take revenge on the couple, she turned into a serpent and returned to the garden, where she convinced Eve to eat of the forbidden fruit, which in turn led to the wrath of God and the expulsion of Adam and Eve from the Garden of Eden. Very interesting. In that case, didn't God know it was Lilith if that happened? As a result of her rebellion, Lilith became a figure of fear and malice in Jewish folklore, associated with witchcraft, seduction, and death. But can we find similar stories of Lilith in other cultures and religious traditions? Lilith is not mentioned directly in the Bible, but some Christian writers mention her as a symbol of temptation and sin. In Islamic tradition, Lilith is believed to be the mother of jinn or supernatural beings. In some depictions and art, Lilith is depicted standing on the back of two lions, which she seems to bend to her will. In some reliefs, she is depicted with the upper body of a woman and the tail of a snake instead of the lower body, similar to Echidna in Greek mythology. However, the myth of Lilith did not die out with the passage of time. On the contrary, it was even rediscovered, and women are beginning to find more and more the metaphorical symbolism and what this name and this essence expresses, what it carries with it. And while in medieval Jewish texts she is portrayed as seductive and as timid about the sexual purity of men, in later European folklore, she is often associated with witchcraft and accused of hurting children. Let us not forget that literally only a few centuries ago the occult, so-called witchcraft, alchemy were considered dangerous, forbidden, heretical, and whoever deals with them is on the devil's side. And this has been imposed. Why? Because all these, not that there weren't any dark rituals and sacrifices and so forth, but we're talking about the bigger picture here. All of these people who worked in secret and kept themselves from the authorities in those times. They had and were showing their capabilities. They were developing their interests in astronomy, in science, in chemistry, because they were working more with their consciousness, with their thoughts, some with their energy, healing abilities. So you can imagine how that looked to someone very religious. Imagine the 13th century, somebody lying down on the ground, healing you with his bare hands. You witness it. For you, it's pure magic. The magician is one of the demons because he does things that are forbidden to normal people. They cannot do such things. And that's why it's Satan expressing himself through this guy, and he wants to get something out, and that's why he gave him this ability. Because otherwise this person cannot be able to heal or to do all these things. In the 19th and 20th centuries, Lilith was rediscovered by feminist writers and scholars who saw her as a symbol of female equality. In this context, she came to represent the struggle for women's rights and the rejection of patriarchal authority. But what does the name Lilith mean? And can we find more about her in the meaning of her name itself? The exact origin of the name Lilith is unclear. Some speculate that the name may derive from the Sumerian word Lilito, which we said earlier, and which refers to a type of female demon or vampire. Another possibility is that the name Lilith comes from the Akkadian word Lilo, which means spirit of the wind or ghost. This would link Lilith to a broader mythological tradition of female spirits and demons thought to inhabit the world of the dead. In Sumerian mythology, Enlil is one of the Anunnaki, I suppose you know, and is responsible precisely to the winds. Can we draw an analogy between Lilith and Enlil, since both figures contain Lil in their name? Others have suggested that the name may come from the Hebrew word Lil, which means night, and therefore Lilith could be translated as night creature or creature of the night. So, regardless of its exact origin, the name Lilith is beginning to be associated with a powerful and mysterious figure, who embodies both the allure and the danger of the night and the unknown. As a dark, shadowy figure, Lilith is often associated with animals such as owls, snakes, and other creatures of the night. How do they contribute to her symbolic significance? In many cultures, owls are seen as symbols of wisdom and knowledge, while snakes are often associated with transformation and rebirth. By associating Lilith with these animals, she becomes representative of feminine wisdom, intuition, hidden knowledge, transformation, and rebirth. But Lilith's association with the archetypal figure of the serpent may point to another association. As we know from the Bible, the serpent can represent temptation, sin, and sexuality. In the same way, Lilith can represent the power of the feminine, the desire for autonomy, independence, and the free right to choose and act. Finally, Lilith's connection to animals reflects her connection to nature and paralyzing instinctual forces. She symbolizes the untamed, wild aspects of the human psyche that are often repressed and denied. However, let us now return to ancient Sumer. The Sumerian creation myth is also known as the Genesis of Eridu and the Anunnaki. The ancient civilization of the Sumerians believed in a pantheon of gods, the Anunnakis, who were also known as those who came from the heavens. The main gods involved in creation were Enki, the god of water, knowledge and creation, and Enlil, associated with wind, air, earth, and storms. According to esoteric versions of the Sumerian creation myth, Anunnaki came to Earth to mine gold, and then created humans to perform their task as their helpers at the very beginning. The creation of humans occurs through genetic engineering of the human race using their own DNA. Enki, along with his doppelganger sister, Nin Kursak, mixed their own DNA with that of Homo erectus to create man and woman in their own image. Originally, humans were not allowed to breed, as their population was to be controlled. However, after seeing his own opening being exploited as slaves, Enki decided to teach the humans how to breed on their own. Now comes the interesting part. According to the Torah documents by Robert Morning Sky, there was originally an equality between male and female. However, at one point Marduk, the son of the god Enki, rebelled against the main god Enlil and overthrew him. After establishing his power over the land, the Torah documents explain that to consolidate his power, Marduk removed the female element and rewrote history in such a way as to serve only the male part. If this is true, how can we relate it to the story of Adam, Eve, and Lilith? Lilith and Adam were equal, implying an original equality between the male and female aspects. But then something changes. Lilith is demonized, and when Eve appears, she, having been created by Adam, is already subject to him from the beginning of her existence. Doesn't this exchange and the subsequent story sound convenient for a dominant male aspect? Well, if we look beyond the literal interpretation of the myth of Lilith as a symbol of a neglected and ignored feminine aspect, is it possible that throughout time people have used the image of Lilith to demonize the shadow within themselves, the one they cannot face and prefer to hide? So in some way, can Lilith point to aspects within us that we tend to run from? The myth of Lilith as a creature of the night has also been interpreted very interestingly through psychology, i.e., this myth does not only stay in this limited area of myths, but has also been used in psychology. Why? Very interesting. According to this view of Jung, Lilith represents the archetype of the dark feminine or shadow aspect of the psyche, the soul. What is psyche? Originally, the word psyche meant soul or spirit. And so when someone says from my psyche, weak psyche, it's from the psyche. It's from the way my soul is set up. Who tunes my soul? My personal soul, my personal spirit. Who tunes it? Some outside force or me through my own choices, desires, and direction for development? But in the psychology of Carl Jung, the Swiss psychologist and founder of analytical psychology, a person's psyche can be seen as the totality of a person and encompasses all his thoughts, behaviors, feelings, and emotions. Or as he says, the totality of all mental processes, conscious and unconscious. Carl Jung was quite interested in the symbolism of Lilith and its significance to the human psyche. Jung sees Lilith as a powerful symbol of the unconscious or representation of the anima, which is the feminine aspect of the male psyche. In a sense, Jung views Lilith as a symbol of the shadow, which is the dark and unknown aspects of us that we deny for a number of reasons. This shadow represents the parts of us that we don't want to face, such as our fears, insecurities, negative beliefs, and beliefs since we were children. that we don't want to explore enough to move forward. Carl Jung believes that working with this shadow, so-called of Lilith, reading is essential for psychological growth and wholeness. That is, explore your fears. Explore what scares you. Explore your beliefs and the things that you somehow don't believe in or doubt in a primal way. Just see them, look at them, acknowledge them, and naturally that will lead to your own growth, going beyond the zone of your known possibilities up to now, the so-called comfort zone, the troublemaking zone. Explore the unknown with a smile, with love, with gratitude, and automatically you are already growing. So how does the myth of Lilith connect to integrating the unconscious aspects to ourselves? Well, no one wants, in general, to explore their dark sides, because somewhere he is lying. Maybe somewhere he is not honest. Maybe he is cheating. Maybe he is seeing other people, while he's made a vow to only one person. These are the dark sides that we humans define as dark. Jung believes that psychotherapy should help people bring their unconscious thoughts and experiences into the conscious, leading to better self-understanding and a more fulfilling life. On this occasion, he says, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will guide your life, and you will call it destiny." This quote suggests that our unconscious thoughts, feelings, and desires have a significant impact on our lives, even if we are not conscious. And until we realize and accept these unconscious influences, we will continue to be driven by them, and may even confuse their influence on our lives with fate, or something beyond our control. And in reality, everything is under our control. We, through our choices, are constantly changing the world we live in. We do it 10 out of 44 times a second. And so Jung sees Lilith as a symbol of the unconscious, and believes that by exploring it through techniques like dream analysis, for example, we can gain a deeper understanding of ourselves and the motives behind our behavior. By making the unconscious conscious, we can become more aware and make choices about how we want to live our lives, rather than being unconsciously driven by forces that we don't fully understand. To take responsibility for our lives and create what we desire, instead of making excuses that everything happens because of fate, because of external factors. To stop looking outside ourselves and blame others for our troubles, to stop pointing fingers at everyone else, and use them as an escape from pointing ourselves not as guilty, but as responsible. Because this is our life, this is our path, this is our opportunity to know life in a new and unique way, and after experiencing it anyway, through the source that flows through us, there is obviously a reason to experience it in this particular form, in this particular uniqueness, in this particular way, at this particular time. Then it is also right that we take responsibility for it, because it is our world. Thus, when we become aware of the Lilith in ourselves and its own desires, we can gain this very power of the shadow and cause a transformation of the conscious self. By refusing to be controlled by Adam or any other external authority, Lilith represents the power of the individual to reclaim his autonomy. Thus, in psychoanalysis, the story of Lilith represents the power of the unconscious to challenge and transform the conscious self, and has inspired many to explore the depths of their own psyche in search of greater self-awareness and integration. For whom has Lilith been inconvenient, that is to be replaced and removed. And what if Lilith had stayed by Adam's side and there was no Eve? This is a very interesting question. Would there have been an overall change in today's dynamic between man and woman? Because as many feminist movements as there are, this thing is still evolving. I'm tormented, I'm saying from my perspective, because I stand for equality and unity, but somehow still women are oppressed. Still in many cultures, in many nations, in many countries, she is a slave. There are also men who are just like that, but they are very, very few. The idea is, in fact, this episode, this message, which apart from all the wonderful things that have been explored around Lilith in this episode, the idea is to get that message out to all the ladies, to all mothers, to all women who realize their feminine power, and even to those who don't. Understand that you have every right to choose your life, and if you don't, you like where you are right now. You are in fear. You do not feel good. You torture yourself and push yourself to stay in that particular place just to please someone. Realize that this is your life and don't put excuses or boundaries on yourself. It's too late. I'm older now. It can't happen anymore. I'm doing this for him. Do it for yourself. Do it for the sake of just reconnect with life. Love it the way you did when you were a kid. We have a lot of messages from different ladies, of all ages, and the problem is just this. Self-criticism. I'm not saying to pick yourself up, level of pride and of being very great and big, but just to feel that authenticity, that uniqueness, that inner strength, that harmony, that is in us anyway. This potential of creators, of our own reality, and to embrace it, to realize that it really is, and really our decisions matter. Our choices that we make about our world matter. If it had stayed, maybe we would have seen a more equal partnership between men and women, and most importantly, between the male and female principle, because everything in nature has two sides, yin and yang. If this had been the case, then could the Great Flood have been averted? If the history of Lilith was altered to suit the needs of those in control, what can we say about all human history through the ages? Do historical accounts accurately and objectively represent what really happened back in the past? What would our world look like if we knew the real truth? We know that throughout history, various groups and individuals have tried to control and manipulate history for their own purposes, such as the desire for power or the promotion of a particular ideology. One such clear example is the New Testament of the Bible, which includes only 4 strictly chosen Gospels, whereas all the Gnostic Gospels that tell of the true teachings of Jesus are omitted and are classified as heresy. The story of Lilith can also be seen as a warning of the dangers that follow from not precisely observing this balance even in a family when they have this obedience. In fact, it is quite natural that the part which has been screwed up in this form would then turn to its dark side and become a demon to the rest and to the family. And then we wonder why we meet people who don't like their jobs. They are mean with you when you greet them and look at you badly. When you say good day to them or wish them a happy evening, they look at you like you are the reason for their bad day. Because there you have it, the case of this very episode. Because they have expressed their inner Lilith in you and they start criticizing and mocking at you. Because they are subjected every day to the rules of the matrix and respectfully to their mate. This also calls us to embrace the full spectrum of our human experience, including the parts of ourselves and others that are often repressed or denied. The mythology of Lilith can teach us a lot about the human psyche and our relationship to the unknown. Her story can be seen as a warning against denying or repressing aspects of ourselves, as this can lead to feelings of anger, resentment, and suffering. Instead, the myth of Lilith encourages us to embrace the full range of our emotions and desires, even those that are considered taboo or unconventional. Lilith's association with night, darkness, and the unknown can be seen as a reminder that there is always more to ourselves and the world around us than this, that we can see or understand. Admittedly, we have written the mystery and complexity of life, but the ease of living, the serenity of life, the gratitude that is in life, the love that is in everything, that returns to us constantly like a boomerang. When we tend to radiate it constantly, then we will have the opportunity to open ourselves to new possibilities, new experiences, to rediscover ourselves constantly, to find ourselves in everyone and in everything, instead of living in constant stress, in fear, in disconnection and fear. Blaming others for our own choices, and so endlessly, unwilling to learn our lesson instead of just to accept ourselves for who we are, and just start exploring the unknown with a smile like children of the light. I bow before you and thank you for being here with us in this episode of Hidden Reality. The topic about Lilith is very interesting. Please write down in the comments below how many of you even knew of Lilith's existence and any other versions besides the Adam and Eve story. Let's think. Let's really think about it. If there are these kinds of distortions in our own history from thousands of years ago, what can we say about today's events and the future? It looks like this pattern goes on for so long. Our request is when you research a specific story, science even, look at it alternative points of view. Don't exclude them. Don't go into the limitation and into only one field of knowledge. Because that has been the specific goal for so many years of Matrix. Because now more and more people are starting to awaken and coming out of the so-called Matrix. And these things are starting to not affect them. They begin to automatically accept more and more different points of view and realize that there is not just one single truth. Truth is not orthodox, but on the contrary, everyone has his own truth to determine for himself. As the truth of his life, as the engine that makes him creator of all that is